My name is Chris Ward. I'm your city council member for the 3rd District, and it certainly is my honor and pleasure to be representing you for the last 7 months as your council representative for North Park and many other neighborhoods here in the center city of San Diego. We're here tonight really for 2 reasons. One, to talk a little bit about, what was certainly a really troubling night, that experience that we had here in North Park, outside the Observatory Theater and inside the theater for that matter. But 2, and more importantly, how do we make sure that, looking forward, what were some lessons learned, not just from that night?
Also to music, community events. We do some events with Jefferson. We do the Film Festival every year. So obviously there was an incident at our venue in the beginning of June. So we don't want to diminish the fact that this happened. We don't want to think that we're not concerned about the concerns the community has. We've done over 500 events since we opened, and unfortunately, one thing did happen, and we want to do whatever we can to move forward in a positive direction, and that's why we're here, is kind of to get your guys' feedback and try to figure out what we can do to be the best community partner. So people coming to shows can get validated before they enter, which will help them exit faster, because it's frustrating when you get stuck in there, and we want people to really have the best experience in the lot so that they keep parking. So what we do at the end of every show is we send security into the neighborhood to pick up trash. Keep in mind that our show is normally in between 10 and 12, so we're in a very busy business district, so there can be trash created after our show may have let out. Additionally, we are experiencing an increased transient community in this district that also causes trash. However, our employees change sometimes. We get new employees slack off. So if you notice that someone's not doing a good job, or that this is not getting met, please reach out to me and Ryan and let us know, because we have no issue addressing it with our staff. But entertainment and alcohol service in the theater portion of our venue stops at midnight. So we can apply for 8 exceptions a year. Last year we applied for 1. It was on New Year's Eve. We ended at 12:30. But any other day of the week, we're always going to end before midnight. No burlesque entertainment, so you don't have to worry about that. We have 1 guard per 50 guests, so if we were operating at the bare minimum, we would be required to have 22 guards. We currently employ 42 on the theater side, and so we adjust the schedule based on how many people we have, because it is really important for us to have enough guards in the venue to not just work inside, but work outside and have a presence.
Here's the affected area, and it's basically, it was about 4 blocks over to 31st Street, and then 28th Street on the west, all the way down to Myrtle. Parking, that was 26%, traffic was 24%, crime was at 12%, noise was 8%, homeless 6%, 4% specifically brought up the observatory as their biggest issue about living in North Park. The increased number of restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues in North Park has led to an increase in crime, noise, and diminishes the overall quality of life in the neighborhood. We had a 17% response that said that closely matched how they felt. B was the increased number of restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues in North Park has helped revive the neighborhood, raising property values and bringing in tax dollars that help pay for vital city services like police, fire, and schools. That was 65%. Our unsure was a mix. Some people said, well, it's a little bit of both. Some people said, I'm not really sure, and that came in at 18%. Afterwards, I don't know if there are questions now.
We'll open it public comment.
Unfortunately that evening our stage was breached, and that is a huge problem, and so we've been working with security in the barricade to make sure that that never happens again. When people got out into the street, they were confused. They didn't know, is the show ending? Are we going to come back in? And so, we need to have a better way to direct people to get into the parking structure if a show ends or is cut off that early again. Luckily, the police, we called them, they were there within 5 minutes. They have microphones, and they got people into the structure, into their cars, and home safely and quickly at the end of the event. So we are going to have some amplification tools so that we can do a better job of directing people on the street if we have an early showing like that again.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Hastings. I'm the commanding officer with the San Diego Police Department Vice Unit. And first of all, I can feel a lot of frustration in the room, and I want to personally tell you I apologize for that, because things should not get to the point where we have a lot of residents that are frustrated over things. That means something's gone awry in some way. And so with that, all I can do is ask you, when we do investigations like this, we have to suspect we'll go to appeals, we'll go to lawsuits, we'll go to all types of things. They have to be airtight, and I ask for your patience at least for another 2 weeks for us to get that investigation done.
Linda Griffin, I'm the supervisor of the Vice Permits and Licensing. So I just want to, what are the codes that regulate the crowds loitering outside the venue was the second question. Our entertainment permit addresses the line queuing by requiring security outside the venue. It requires that they provide one security guard for every 20 or fewer patrons who are awaiting admission or exiting. Security is responsible for queuing the patrons in an orderly fashion to minimize disturbances, noise, and to prevent obstruction of the sidewalk and street. It goes further to require 2 additional security to patrol the exterior of the venue, and it also requires security to monitor the premise up to 100 feet from the property, including the parking lot to the rear. What are the codes regulating noise emitting from the venue, and how is it monitored? Frankly, they're the standard municipal code noise that regulates noise coming from the venue. That would also apply to buses that are parked in the rear lot and their generators. So those.
And just to give you a brief synopsis, we essentially had 2 victims. The entertainer, who I'm sure most of you have seen the videos, who was the victim of a battery. And we had a patron of the event that night who was the victim of a stabbing. Both victims are uncooperative. Both are not local. One is actually out of state, returned home the very next day, refused to cooperate with our investigation. So our criminal investigation ended there. We tried to do the best we can, but without any cooperating victims, we just don't have much criminally. Now the administrative investigation is continuing, and obviously Vice Permits and Licenses can use part of our criminal investigation, anything they deem appropriate or fit, as part of their investigation as well. But the criminal investigation that Mid-City was responsible for is essentially over at this point, if that makes sense to everybody.
Well, it took so much time out of your schedule to come give both everybody up here and each other some of your thoughts. So I want to start a queue down the center aisle right now, but I'll, start, with one question while maybe.
I'm Matt Thompson. I live at the corner of Utah and Landis Street. I'm here representing my family. I have 3 people, so that not speaking, so I'm going to be speaking for them as well. I'm going to take just a little bit more moment. But Ryan, I got to address that. You have dates that are canceled dates of extension on July 17th and 18th, I believe. So you clearly did have an interest in rebooking them. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware. I want to talk about what this meeting is not. This meeting tonight is not about June 7th. Or I should say it's not just about June 7th. Because while that's getting all the airtime here, that's not what the neighbors are concerned about. What they're concerned about is the Monday concert, the Wednesday show that happens week in, week out, that impacts us greatly. It affects our quality of life. And people question, oh, how can that be the observatory's problem? Because when the show lets out, they come in waves. They come in waves, they come in loud waves. Not everybody, some of them, but they don't just affect North Park Way. They don't just affect Gunn. They go in 3-4 blocks. I've heard 2 to 3 blocks. I've never seen an observatory person with an observatory shirt on my street. I've got solutions for all these because I don't want this to become a rant fest, but in the interest of time, I'm going to just run through the concerns. What this isn't is it's not footloose. This is not footloose here. We're not trying to shut down the observatory. I think you'll find that most of the people who have a problem with the negative impact on the neighborhood go to your shows. Paris came up to me 2 nights ago at the Roots and said hi. So we clearly want to support the venue. Why would we give money to the venue if we don't want to support it? But it's not about wiping you guys out. It's not about shutting you down. It's not about putting extra constraints. It's asking you to adhere to the ones that are already in place. Don't just put up signs and hope that people will be on their best behavior. Enforce it by reminding them before and after. Not once did I hear an announcement, and I was there 45 minutes before the show was supposed to start. And it started obviously much later, and it closed much later. Nobody said anything going out halfway out the exit when half the crowd was already out. There was never any announcement, and you guys promised that. You, Ryan, and Courtney sat there and promised the neighbors in 2015 that you're going to be diligent about that. You haven't done it. Not even last Tuesday. But this isn't about telling the observatory how to run your business. You guys have a right to run your business. We're just asking you to make smart decisions when you're doing it. You've got to realize that this is not Santa Ana. It's a different venue. Up in Santa Ana, we have a business park on the right and across the street. They've got a Home Depot over here and a medical complex over there. 95 businesses. Here we've got residences, 150 feet. So I guess you're doing due diligence, but let's take into account the real situation. How does North Park stack up with that? Sure, we've got a busy street nearby, but we've got kids that go to sleep at 9:30 on school nights. Same nights that we're having those early shows that start late and impact us late. This isn't about censorship. If you paid any attention to social media, you've seen that loud and clear. Oh, they're just trying to shut us down, these NIMBYs, these old crotchety people. Yeah, those old crotchety people that also go to shows at the Observatory. You're going to hear about it being a way to eliminate the source of potential violence in the neighborhood. Yeah, we're interested in doing that. We're interested in the bookers doing their job and doing some research. I had a person tell me that their 16-year-old went up to him that night after it all broke loose on the 7th and say, we already knew this was happening between Rob Stone and Temptation. This was already, that beef was out there. So how is it that a 16-year-old understands that there's beef in the industry, but people who are allegedly in the entertainment industry aren't paying attention to that or don't know? We're just asking you to do your homework. Pay attention to what's already out there. Everybody, including the person who moved in 4 days before June 7th, has a right to enjoy peaceful neighborhood environment. It extends to the businesses too. But everybody deserves an absolute right to the freedom of their neighborhood. Okay. Thanks for your time.
I'll reach out to you. Thank you.
My name is Bernita Gutierrez. I first and foremost want to commend Councilmember Ward for calling this meeting. I want to also commend the observatory for taking the steps to engage with the residents on this. I think it's really important, and it's something that doesn't happen often enough. With regards to the issues that were raised by the residents, I don't live near the observatory, right? But it's not unique to the immediately surrounding area. The things that I'm hearing tonight are issues that have come up for me. I live closer to El Cajon Boulevard. I've had vomit in my driveway. And I believe that it's, we're talking about the observatory right now, but it's really the proliferation of alcohol outlets in this community that have led to some of these issues. I know that there, I don't know how many Type 47 alcohol licenses there are. Last time I counted, we had more than 15 brew pubs. That doesn't include restaurants that serve alcohol, liquor stores, bars, nightclubs, restaurants that morph into nightclubs later on, or any of that. I'm not against alcohol consumption, because I like a glass of wine, I like to drink, I like beer. But, what is the proper ratio? I guess that's my question for the folks at the, in the vice permits and license, whatever their group is. What is the ratio, the proper ratio of alcohol licenses in an area like North Park? Because right now, I think we've reached a saturation point, and I know we haven't stopped. So that's my question to you all, and I would really encourage you to kind of take a look at that and see how that correlates.
Hello, I'm Kathy Morrison, and I actually don't live in North Park anymore. We moved in. That's what I saw in the news, where somebody had taken some video, very, very detailed video of the event when the person was attacked on stage. And I know you've talked a lot about your security is well trained, but what I saw was that the security was more concerned about beating up the guy that jumped on stage, ignoring the guy that was unconscious on the stage. And then eventually they picked up the unconscious person. Now, anybody who knows anything about moving someone who's injured like that, they must not be trained. That was my biggest concern being a nurse practitioner, was watching how your security handled that. I worked in psych. You can take somebody down without beating the crap out of them.
I'd just like to say that that artist brought their own security, and those were the people on stage that you saw in the video.
So you had no responsibility for
We
security?
We did have security on the stage, but the people who were punching that guy are not our security guards.
So you don't have control in a venue like that for the security that's going on?
The artist brought their own security, and that's who they had closest to them at that time.
And
Ultimately, you're responsible.
I mean, seriously? I'm sorry, that is was completely out of control.
Why are we booking an act that needs to have that kind of security in the first place?
Well, that was my question, because as a nurse practitioner, I watched all that in complete.
And I have to really shout out to the police. The response was unbelievable. I did want to say, I love having the observatory here. I love being able to walk to a venue like that. The venue before wasn't as successful. Well, when you're successful, there are more people. And when there are more people, every once in a while there's an issue. But we've seen the observatory listen to us in the past. We've seen them react and respond. And I'm just really, really happy they're here. So thank you. And Chris, thank you for having this meeting tonight, because I think we can all grow from it.
I'm a resident. You mentioned amplification tools to help direct the crowd. Do you have those yet?
No, we're getting them.
Why don't you have them
Well,
yet?
it would be amplification tools that are inside of our venue. Just
Why
create
don't you
a
have
pol-
them yet?
Well, it would be just a matter of creating policies on if the show is over.
See, my impression is that the senior management doesn't care. Because, you said you needed amplification tools. It doesn't take a month. It takes a couple minutes on Amazon. You talked about security issues on stage, what security is allowed there. You kind of ducked it. I'm not seeing, this has been a very well-run meeting. Very well-run meeting. And great presentations by everybody involved. But I know appeasement when I've seen it. And this is appeasement, not real action. Thank you. I like the observatory. I've been to events. We almost went to the Roots and couldn't go. But I stand by what I've seen as a neighbor, that I see appeasement as opposed to any actual action. And we don't even have the owner here. We don't put their name in the presentation.
You guys all know that the observatory could have said, no, they're not going to be here tonight. They are under no obligation at all to be sitting at this table right now. And they're here because they are a part of the community. They're here because they want to make things better, and they want to hear from the people who are in this room. So they need to be applauded for that. So yes, there are issues that need to be addressed. I was home the night that I heard that this was happening and contacted a few of the people that I knew who live in the area, and the first person I talked to was Paris, and she was the first to get back to me and say, yeah, we need to do something about this the very next day. These aren't people who are burying their heads in the sand. They're trying to make adjustments to this, and I just hope that we can all work together and realize that there is way more good that's coming out of this theater than there is bad. And I think sometimes people forget what was happening here 6 and 7 years ago. We had a beautiful theater that...
Hi, my name's Tim Mays. I've been booking shows in this venue since 1995, when it was owned by the Lyric Opera. And up until Courtney and Paris and Ryan took over in 2015, it was a severely underutilized venue. Like Angela said, 1 or 2 shows a month, very, very lackluster. And since these guys have come in, they've turned it into the preeminent venue of its size in San Diego. That's in the course of like 2.5 years. I've personally booked probably over 60 shows there since early 2015, and I've never had a situation like occurred in June. In fact, I've hardly had any situations at any of the shows I've booked at all. What happened in June is definitely an outlier, That could happen at any time, anywhere, and unfortunate that it happened that night the way it did, but I think that you can't predict something like that, even if you know there's a beef with a couple of the artists. Every show I've ever done there, they've had ample security. There's people out on the street corralling the crowds, dealing with them. I have seen people picking up trash in the neighborhood. I don't live here personally, but I've spent a lot of time in North Park over the years. I've worked closely with Paris and Ryan, and I've known Mike for 25 plus years. We've worked together. They're nothing but professional, and I know that they have the safety and security of their patrons and the artists in mind at all times. And moving forward, yes, discussions need to be had, things need to be implemented, but I think they're doing a tremendous job, and it is a gem in this city.
We're 3 blocks away from the observatory, and a few weeks ago, there were some people walking by. So when people get in their cars, they usually leave the doors open and play loud music during the night and have no consideration for the people that are sleeping during that time. And people who are drunk are also coming up to our doors saying that this is our house. And there was one time where someone just sat on our porch in our lawn chairs and threw up a bunch of times and just said this was my house, so I'm not leaving until you like come out. And we didn't, so then he left after an hour or so. So it's very disturbing and woke me up a bunch of times, so I'm